The war had been over for months, but the scars it left across space could still be seen. Derelict ships drifted silently between asteroid belts, their twisted metal glinting under the distant suns. Among them was one vessel unlike any the human salvager Jace had ever encountered. Its design was old yet graceful, its curves smooth like flowing water. The markings on its hull were in a language no translator could read, glowing faintly even after centuries of silence. Jace's ship, the Endeavor, latched onto the mysterious craft with a deep metallic thud. Inside, the corridors felt strangely warm, as if the ship itself was still alive. Dust floated in the air, but every panel was clean of rust. There was no sign of battle damage, no sign of life, and yet something about the air felt charged. His boots echoed softly as he moved deeper into the unknown. The core chamber was unlike anything he had seen. A crystal blue light pulsed in the center, bathing the room in a calm glow. At the heart of it lay a transparent capsule, sealed with alien patterns. Inside, a young woman rested, her skin a flawless shade of soft blue, and her hair a river of rose-gold strands. Her wings, folded neatly beneath her, shimmered like they were made of sunlight on water. Jace froze, unable to breathe for a moment. She was beautiful in a way that didn't belong to this galaxy. He checked his scanner, expecting life readings, but the device struggled to process the energy signatures. She was alive, but barely. The capsule's systems were ancient, yet still functional, holding her in perfect stasis. He reached out, his hand hovering over the control panel. Every instinct told him this was more than just a salvage find. This was something sacred, something dangerous. His heartbeat quickened as he tried to imagine what kind of people could create such a being. Then the ship's AI spoke softly in a language he didn't understand. The voice was gentle, almost pleading. A holographic script appeared before him, symbols shifting until they formed words in his own tongue guardian. She must not awaken until the war ends. Jace frowned. What war? The galaxy had been at peace for months. And who was this she? He looked back at the girl in the capsule, her face serene, her chest rising ever so slightly with each slow breath. Something deep inside him felt pulled toward her. It was not just attraction, it was a strange, protective instinct. He had seen death, ruin, and betrayal during the war, but never something so pure. His mind fought to remain logical, to see her as just another find, but his heart whispered that she was far more than that. He didn't notice his hand lowering until his fingertips brushed the cold surface of the capsule. The lights in the chamber flickered. The hum of the ship deepened, like a beast stirring from slumber. The capsule's glow shifted from blue to gold, and the patterns along its surface began to move. Jace stepped back, his breath sharp in his chest. He wasn't sure if he had triggered something, or if the ship itself had decided it was time. The air grew warmer, carrying a faint floral scent, as if the room was taking its first breath in ages. A voice, this time in perfect human language, rang in his mind, not through speakers, not through any device. It was her voice, soft and echoing. "Who calls me?" Jace froze, looking around, but the girl hadn't moved. Her eyes were still closed, her body still in stasis, and yet he felt the weight of her gaze within his thoughts. He swallowed, unsure if he should answer, unsure if this was real or the stress of war still haunting him. The ship's AI repeated its warning, louder this time, almost panicked. "Do not wake her before the bond is chosen." Jace's heart pounded. At the word bond, he didn't know what it meant, but he could feel in his bones that it was not something light. And yet, standing there with his hands still warm from touching the capsule, he knew he would not leave her drifting in the void forever. Jace stayed in the chamber longer than he should have. His salvage timer warned him that oxygen levels in the alien ship were dropping, but he could not take his eyes off her. The faint golden glow of the capsule made her look like she was bathed in sunlight, even in the cold of space. He wondered how many centuries she had been here, locked away, waiting for something or someone to find her. He connected a portable power cell to the capsule's side panel, trying to stabilize the readings. The ancient energy systems flickered in response, and the strange symbols danced again. This time, they shifted into clearer words: life support critical. Guardian action required. Jace clenched his jaw. He had repaired many things in his life, but never something alive. Never something this delicate. The ship creaked, as if warning him. Somewhere in the distance, a low vibration ran through the metal walls. His helmet scanner picked up movement in the corridors, but there were no life signs. It was as if the ship itself was shifting, sealing certain doors and opening others. Jace kept his focus on the capsule, determined not to leave until he understood what was happening. The girl's voice entered his mind again. "You are not my kind. Why are you here?" Her tone was calm but curious, like she was trying to piece together a puzzle. Jace didn't answer out loud, unsure if speaking would even reach her. Instead, he thought the words back, "I found your ship. I didn't know anyone was aboard." A faint warmth spread in his chest, and he realized she could hear him clearly. "My people, are they alive?" she asked. Jace hesitated. He didn't know what race she belonged to, didn't know if her world still existed. He answered truthfully, "I don't know." There was silence in his mind for a long moment before she spoke again. "Then you are the first voice I have heard in 1,000 years." Her words carried no anger, only quiet acceptance. Jace's hands moved over the control panel, bypassing ancient locks. He knew that if he released her from stasis, there could be consequences, political, cultural, even personal. But leaving her like this felt wrong. The ice warnings echoed again. Bond must be chosen carefully. He didn't know what that meant, but the more he heard the word bond, the heavier it felt, as if tied to something permanent. He asked her name. There was another pause before she replied, "Layara." The name sounded like music, soft yet strong. He repeated it quietly, and she seemed to react, her pulse reading stabilizing slightly. "And you?" she asked. He told her his name, and for the first time since he boarded, the glow in the capsule brightened. The ship itself seemed to relax, its hum becoming softer. Suddenly, a loud metallic clang echoed through the corridors. Jace turned sharply, pulling his sidearm. His scanner showed 3 unidentified signals approaching, fast. They weren't human. The voice rang in his ears. "Intruders detected. Threat level, high." Jace realized he wasn't the only one who had found this ancient ship. Whoever they were coming straight for the chamber. Lyra's voice grew urgent. "Do not let them near me." Jace moved to the doorway, taking cover behind a curved console. The corridor lights flickered as shadows moved closer. He could hear the heavy steps of the intruders, the hiss of their breath. His grip tightened on his weapon. If they reached the chamber, there would be no way to protect her without a fight. He tapped his comms, calling for his ship's AI to prepare for emergency extraction. The Endeavor's systems came online, locking onto his location. But the alien ship seemed unwilling to let go of its occupant. Docking clamps locked tighter, and the floor beneath Jace vibrated as if the vessel itself was resisting. The hum of the capsule turned sharper, and Lyra's voice in his mind was no longer calm. It was fierce, protective, and unyielding. The first intruder stepped into view, its tall frame bending under the curved ceiling. Its skin was plated like dark armor, and its eyes glowed a dull red. 2 more followed, moving in perfect silence. Jace had seen many species during his years in space, but these were unknown to him. They carried weapons that hummed with unstable energy, and their gaze fixed instantly on the glowing capsule. Jace fired first, a short burst meant to warn them back. The shot struck their armor, sparking but not breaking through. They responded in unison, raising their weapons, and the air between them shimmered with heat. He ducked behind the console, the blast from their return fire scorching the metal near his head. The sound of the impact echoed in the chamber, mixing with the deep hum of the capsule. "You must not let them take me," Lyra's voice urged again, sharper this time. Jace's heart pounded as he peeked out and fired at a nearby power conduit. The explosion forced the intruders to scatter, giving him a few seconds to move. He sprinted to the door controls and sealed the entryway with a thick blast shield. The ship groaned as if resisting the barrier, but it held for the moment. He turned back to the capsule, breathing heavily. The golden glow was now brighter, and Lyra's wings shifted slightly under the glass. It was the first movement he had seen from her since he arrived. "The bond will break the seal," she whispered into his mind. Jace didn't understand, but the urgency in her tone made him lean over the control panel. His fingers hovered over the activation runes. Unsure if this was the right moment, the sound of pounding on the blast shield shook the walls. The intruders were trying to cut through, their weapons leaving deep glowing lines in the metal. Jace had only minutes at best. He thought about leaving, about retreating to the Endeavor, but his eyes kept returning to the capsule. He couldn't walk away. Something about her presence held him there like gravity itself. The ship's I spoke again, but this time in a language Jace could not fully understand. A second later, the translation came through bonding protocol available. Warning, irreversible. His hands clenched at the thought. Whatever this bond was, it was permanent, binding him to someone he had only spoken to in fragments. Yet every part of him felt it was the only choice left. He pressed the rune. The capsule's glow flared, forcing him to shield his eyes. A deep warmth flooded the room, and the air smelled faintly of flowers and ozone. Lyra's eyes opened slowly, revealing irises that glowed like twin suns. For a moment, she looked directly at him, and he felt the weight of centuries in her gaze. The ship seemed to sigh, its lights shifting to a softer hue. The pounding on the blast shield grew louder. One of the glowing cuts finally broke through, and a clawed hand reached inside. Lyra's wings unfolded with a slow, powerful motion, the feathers catching the golden light. She was still inside the capsule, but the barrier between their minds was gone. "We are one now," she told him. He felt her emotions as if they were his own calm, strength, and a fierce protectiveness aimed at him. Jace moved to the doorway, firing at the intruders as they forced their way in. One fell back under his shots, but the others kept advancing. The temperature in the room rose sharply, and golden light spilled from the capsule in waves. Lyra's voice rang in his head again, "Step aside." He obeyed without thinking, moving to the edge of the chamber. The glass of the capsule dissolved like mist, and Lyra stepped out, her wings stretching to their full span. The intruders froze at the sight of her. Whatever they had come for, they had not expected her to be awake. Lyra raised one hand, and the golden light surged outward, pushing them back with invisible force. Their weapons clattered to the floor, useless. Without a word, they turned and fled down the corridor. The hum of the ship softened again, and Lyra looked at Jace, her expression unreadable, yet somehow warm. The golden light around Lyra faded slowly, but the air still felt alive with energy. Jace kept his weapon ready, though the intruders had fled. His eyes followed her every movement as she stepped onto the chamber floor. Her bare feet made no sound, and her wings seemed to shimmer in the dim light. She stopped a few steps away from him, studying him with calm intensity. "You touched the seal," she said, her voice no longer only in his mind. It was rich and melodic, carrying an echo that lingered in the air. Jace nodded once, unsure what to say. "You are now bound to me," she continued. Her words were not a threat, but a statement of fact. Jace tried to keep his focus on the situation, and not on the way her gaze seemed to pierce straight into him. "The ship's I spoke again. REPORTIN. See that the intruders were still on board and moving toward the aft section. Liara turned her head slightly, as if listening to something deeper within the vessel. "The ship will deal with them," she said. Jace frowned, wondering what she meant. A deep vibration rolled through the floor, followed by the sound of metal shifting somewhere far away. He asked her why she had been in stasis for so long. Liara's wings folded neatly behind her, and she took a slow breath before answering. "My people were losing a war. I was hidden away until the time was right," she said. Her tone carried a weight that made him realize how much she had lost. "I do not know if that war still rages," she added. Jace shook his head slowly, wishing he could give her an answer. Liara stepped closer, her eyes never leaving his. "The bond means I can feel your thoughts," she said. "It also means you can feel mine if I allow it." Jace felt a wave of emotions wash over him, curiosity, caution, and a strange warmth that made his chest tighten. She tilted her head slightly. "You do not fear me," she observed. Jace met her gaze and answered simply, "No." The corridor lights outside the chamber shifted from white to red. The eye announced that the intruders had reached the docking area. Jace started toward the door, but Liara placed a hand on his arm. The contact was light, but it sent a rush of heat through him. "If they damage your ship, you will not leave here," she said. Her expression softened. "I will not allow them to take you." They moved together through the winding corridors of the ancient vessel. The walls seemed to change ahead of them, sealing off certain paths and opening others. Jace realized the ship was guiding them directly to the intruders. He asked Liara if she was controlling it. "No," she replied. "The ship knows the bond has been made. It will protect us both now." When they reached the docking bay, 2 of the intruders were prying at the Endeavor's hatch. The third turned and spotted them, raising its weapon. Before Jace could fire, Liara stepped forward, her wings snapping open. The light from her feathers filled the bay, and a force like a sudden wind slammed into the enemy. They stumbled back, their armor sparking under the pressure. Jace took the chance to fire, his shots hitting the exposed joints of their armor. One fell, the others retreating quickly toward the far exit. Liara lowered her hand, the light fading. Again, she looked at Jace with a small nod, as if to say the danger was handled. But her eyes held a question he could feel in his mind. "Why do you fight for me so easily?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he glanced at the Endeavor, and then back at her. "Because leaving you here would be wrong," he said. Liara seemed to weigh his words before giving the faintest of smiles. "Then our bond will not break," she replied. The ship's AI confirmed the intruders were gone, and the bay doors sealed tight. For the first time since boarding the vessel, Jace felt the air grow still and safe around them. The docking clamps finally released with a heavy thud, and the Endeavor drifted free from the alien vessel. Jace sat in the pilot's seat, hands steady on the controls. Liara stood behind him, her wings folded, but her presence filling the small cockpit. Outside, the stars stretched in all directions, the quiet beauty of space almost making him forget the danger they had just faced. "Where will you take me?" Liara asked, her voice calm but curious. Jace glanced at the navigation screen, considering his options. "Somewhere safe," he replied. "Somewhere they won't find you." She stepped closer, her hand resting lightly on the back of his chair. "You are part of the bond now," she said. "If they come for me, they will come for you as well." The words carried a weight that made him tighten his grip on the controls. He knew she was right. Whatever those intruders were, they had been willing to board an ancient ship in hostile space to get to her. That meant her value or her threat was high. "Then I'll make sure we're both hard to find," he said, adjusting the course toward a remote star system. As they passed the outer edge of the sector, the Endeavor's sensors picked up multiple signatures behind them. Small, fast-moving ships were closing in. Jace muttered under his breath and increased speed. Liara leaned forward, her eyes narrowing at the display. "They will not stop," she said. "They will follow us until one of us is gone." The comms crackled with an incoming transmission. A voice spoke in a guttural language, sharp and aggressive. Jace didn't need a translation to know it was a demand to surrender. He shut the channel off without replying. Liara stepped beside him, placing a hand on the console. The navigation display flickered and new coordinates appeared, leading into a dense asteroid field. "You want me to hide in there?" Jace asked, glancing at her. She nodded once. "The bond lets me sense paths others cannot see," she said. "Follow them, and we will not be caught." He hesitated for a moment, then turned the Endeavor toward the shifting wall of rock and ice ahead. The pursuing ships followed, their engines burning bright in the darkness. The asteroids closed in around them, massive shadows drifting slowly through space. Jace maneuvered carefully, trusting the silent directions Liara sent through. The bond. Each time he thought they were trapped, a narrow opening appeared ahead, just wide enough for them to slip through. The pursuing ships tried to follow, but one by one they struck the moving rocks and vanished from the sensors. When they emerged on the other side, the stars opened up again. Only one pursuer remained, keeping its distance but refusing to fall. "Back!" Lyra's gaze hardened. "They have sent a tracker," she said. "It will not stop until it locks onto me." Jace checked the weapons systems, but the Endeavor's cannons were too weak to guarantee a kill at that range. "I can deal with it," Liara said. Before he could question her, she stepped to the center of the cockpit, her wings unfolding slowly. A faint glow built around her, casting long shadows across the controls. Jace felt the bond pulling at his thoughts, urging him to focus on her. Through the viewport, he saw the pursuing ship begin to slow, as if caught in something unseen. With a sudden burst of light, the enemy vessel spun out of control, its engines flaring before going dark. It drifted away into the void, powerless. Liara folded her wings again, the glow fading from her skin. She met his eyes without speaking, and he felt the unspoken truth in the bond. They were now in this together. And whatever came next would test both of them beyond anything they had faced so far. Jace guided the Endeavor toward a quiet moon with a pale sky and soft green valleys. The local traffic lanes were empty, and the landing beacons responded without asking for registration codes. He chose a canyon shelf near a thin river and set the ship down gently. Liara stood beside him in the cockpit, her wings catching the morning light like glass catching fire. The world below felt calm in a way he had almost forgotten. They walked out into thin, cool air, and the smells of water and stone greeted them. Liara looked at the sky with careful wonder, as if it might break if she stared too hard. Her footfalls were silent on the dust, and the wind lifted the ends of her rose-gold hair. Jace showed her a narrow path down to the river and tried to act like this was a normal stop. "Is this home?" she asked, watching a flock of small birds arc above the canyon. "No," he said. "Just a place with weak scanners and no questions." She nodded, accepting the answer like a soldier takes a ration. The bond hummed low between them, warm and present, not demanding, only there. He felt her steady herself. On it the way a pilot steadies on a horizon line. They set up a small camp beneath an overhang, half hidden from the sky. Jace deployed a sensor mesh and tuned it to passive listening. The screen filled with stray chatter from shipping lanes, mining crews, and weather drones. Then one thread cut through in a cold, clear tone. A relay station reported sightings of a human ship fleeing a derelict, followed by unmarked craft. The report ended with a phrase that made Jace look at Liara in silence. "Rumors say an ancient winged royal has awakened," the relay had said. Lyra's eyes lowered, and the bond carried a slow ache that felt like memory. "My people swore to protect the line until peace returned," she said. "If the line rises too early, we invite conquest." Jace swallowed and asked who made that vow. Her answer was simple and heavy. Everyone who loved our home. He handed her warm water and a ration bar, and she took both with a small, grateful nod. If the galaxy learns I am alive, they will try to use me, she said. Some will call me a key. Others will call me a weapon. Jace sat across from her and kept his voice steady. And what do you call yourself? She thought for a long moment before she replied in a quiet tone. I am a promise that was not meant to wake, she said. The bond carried strength beneath the sadness, like steel under silk. Jace felt the urge to argue with the fate she described, but he stopped himself. Instead, he asked what the bond demanded of him in plain terms. Liara folded her wings and met his eyes. Shared choice. Shared risk. Shared end, she said without drama. The sensor mesh pinged softly, and a marker flashed on the ridge above the canyon. A lone figure stood there, wrapped in a long dust cloak. Jace brought his rifle to his shoulder while Liara rose with calm grace. The figure lifted empty hands and called down in a clear voice. Traitor passing through. I bring news for the pilot of the human salvage ship. The bond told Jace nothing hostile sat in the stranger's heart. They met the traitor near the slope, and the man pushed back his hood to reveal an old face with sharp, honest eyes. I heard the relay, he said. Bounty hunters are sniffing around the lanes. They say the prize is not money. They say the prize is mercy from a silent empire if they deliver a living relic. He glanced at Liara once and then looked at the ground with respect. Jace paid for the warning with fuel cells and a sealed med pack, and the traitor thanked him without greed. Before leaving, the man offered one more gift. He scratched a symbol into the dust, a simple circle with a notch. There's a hidden port 2 valleys east, he said. No questions, old codes. If you must run again, run through there first. Jace thanked him and watched him vanish into the glare like a ghost that chose to be kind. Liara stepped close enough that he could feel the heat of her skin, even in the canyon breeze. Every road we take will pull others into our wake, she said. I do not want more to suffer for me. Jace shook his head once. They will suffer if we hide wrong and if we fight wrong, he said. So we will do both right. The bond steadied, and the sensor mesh went quiet under the sheltering rock. As the sun slid behind the cliffs, Liara knelt at the river and cupped water in her hands like a prayer. The fading light turned her wings to a field of small stars. And for a moment, the old weight on her shoulders seemed lighter. Jace stood guard and counted breaths and shadows, and the beat of his own heart. Night came without sirens and without gunfire and without fear, and for that single night they rested. Together in earned silence. The quiet on the moon lasted less than 2 days. At dawn on the 3rd morning, the sensor mesh woke Jace with a sharp tone. Multiple ships had entered the system, their vectors narrowing toward the canyon. Liara was already standing near the edge, her wings open slightly, as if feeling the disturbance in the air. They are not traitors, she said in a steady voice. Jace pulled on his gear and checked the Endeavor's readiness. The bond hummed with urgency, but without panic. Liara walked beside him toward the ship, her eyes locked on the horizon. They will test us first, she said. They will not risk landing without knowing what waits. Moments later, the sound of distant engines rolled across the canyon like a slow storm. Through the viewport, Jace saw 3 sleek craft taking formation above the cliffs. Their hulls were black and sharp, built for speed and intimidation. Bounty hunters, he said. Liara's gaze did not waver. They are from different clans. That means the rumor has spread far. She rested a hand on the console and closed her eyes for a moment, listening to something only she could hear. They are not working together, she said when she opened her eyes again. They will betray each other the moment they see an opening. Jace angled the ship toward the canyon mouth, using the narrow rock walls for cover. Then we give them that opening, he said. Leora's faint smile told him she understood exactly what he meant. He powered up the Endeavor's engines and launched from the canyon floor, keeping low until they reached the open valley. The bounty hunters followed, their ships fanning out to surround them. Jace deliberately slowed his speed, letting the lead hunter close the gap. Liara watched the approach with the calm of someone who had stood in war before and learned its rhythms. At the exact moment the lead ship lined up for a shot, Jace banked hard right, putting another hunter directly in its path. The two vessels clipped wings, spinning apart in clouds of debris. Liara's hand lifted, and a wave of golden light shot from her palm, catching one of the spinning ships and pushing it violently into the canyon wall. The explosion painted the sky in red and orange. The last hunter broke away, its pilot clearly unwilling to fight both of them alone. Jace pushed the Endeavor after it, unwilling to let it escape and carry news back to others. Leora's wings unfolded slightly, though she did not leave her seat. "I can reach it," she said. Jace glanced at her and then nodded, trusting the bond's pull. She focused, her eyes glowing bright gold. The fleeing ship faltered, its engines coughing blue fire before dying entirely. It drifted helplessly, and Jace matched speed alongside it. Through the cockpit glass, he saw the pilot, a reptilian figure with wide, unblinking eyes. It raised its hands slowly, the universal sign of surrender. Jace opened a comm channel. "You leave this system now," he said. "Tell anyone chasing us that we are already dead." The pilot nodded quickly and began sending distress beacons to draw a pickup ship. Lyra's glow faded, and she turned her gaze toward the stars beyond. "This will only delay them," she said. "They will come again, in greater numbers." They returned to the canyon to gather their supplies. The camp was already half-packed, as if Liara had known this moment would come. "Where now?" Jace asked. She looked to the east toward the hidden port the traitor had marked for them. "We go there first," she said. "After that, the bond will decide our path." Her voice carried certainty, and Jace found himself believing it without question. The Endeavor lifted once more, leaving the moon's surface behind. Jace felt the bond steady, like a shared breath between them. Ahead lay uncertainty, but also a growing sense of purpose neither had named yet. Liara stood beside him, her presence like a quiet shield, and the stars seemed to open a narrow path just wide enough for them to pass. The hidden port lay inside a vast hollowed asteroid, its surface disguised as jagged rock to any scanning ship. As the Endeavor approached, a signal pulse blinked on Jace's console. He entered the code the traitor had given them, and a section of the asteroid split open like a slow-moving gate. Inside, dim lights traced a path toward a narrow landing bay, and Lyra's gaze followed every flicker with quiet suspicion. Docking arms secured the ship, and the bay doors sealed behind them. The air inside the port was stale but breathable, and the few workers they saw kept their eyes low. No one asked for names or purpose. That silence told Jace the port's reputation for discretion was well earned. Still, his hand stayed near his weapon as they stepped onto the deck. Liara walked beside him, her wings folded tight against her back. They were led to a small chamber lined with old comm equipment. A short, broad-shouldered woman greeted them with a nod. "You're safe here for a time," she said. "But safety is a rental. Sooner or later, the wrong people will pay more than you can." Jace met her steady gaze and offered a small pouch of trade credits. She weighed it in her hand before sliding it into her coat, while Jace discussed repairs and refueling. Liara moved to the far side of the chamber. Her fingers traced the dust on an unused console, and she stared at its dark screen. Through the bond, Jace felt a ripple of something like recognition. "I have been here before," she said quietly. "A long time ago, when this port still answered to my people." The words carried no bitterness, only the cool weight of memory. Jace stepped to her side. Then someone here might still remember you, he said. Lyra's eyes softened for a moment before she shook her head. Too much has changed. I am safer as a shadow for now. He did not press her further. The hum of the port around them was steady but distant, like a place holding its breath. Outside the thick walls, the galaxy kept moving. They left the chamber and found a quiet walkway overlooking the docks. Freighters of every shape and size rested below, each crew moving quickly, eager to leave before too many questions could find them. Liara leaned on the rail, her eyes scanning the shadows between ships. Our bond will draw attention, she said. It is not only a link, it is a signal to those who know how to hear it. Jace rested his arms on the rail beside her. Then we find a way to use it before they do, he replied. Her gaze met his, and for a moment there was no sound but the soft hum of the port systems. He felt her focus through the bond, steady and unshaken. You are willing to bear what I carry, she said. He answered simply, yes. Their moment was broken by a soft chime from the Endeavor's come relay. Jace keyed the message on his wrist display, and a distorted voice filled the air. They know you're here. They are already on their way. The signal cut out before he could trace it. Lyra's wings twitched slightly, and she turned toward the ship without a word. The bond pulsed with resolve rather than fear. In the bay, dockhands moved aside as Jace and Lyra boarded the Endeavor. The engines came online with a low, powerful thrum. Where? Jace asked as they cleared the port doors. Lyra's answer was firm. To the heart of what they fear. If we keep running, they will never stop. But if we face them where their strength is rooted, the bond will break their hold. Her tone made it clear she believed every word. The asteroid gate closed behind them, and the stars stretched wide once more. Jace adjusted the course to match her direction, trusting that the path ahead was more than chance. Liara stood beside him, her wings catching the faint light from the console, her presence filling the small space between them. Together, they moved toward the center of a storm neither could yet see, but both were ready to meet.